Hello, this is Ronald with Indicator Vault, and in this video we're going to go over the Gator Oscillator and the Alligator indicator. And it's technically two different indicators. If you pull them up on your MT4, they'll be under the Bill Williams section. Got Alligator and you've got Gator Oscillator. And Bill Williams, he's the developer of this indicator, and they basically work in tandem. It's designed for both to work side by side with each other. So they don't do much necessarily with just one on the chart and not the other. And the language used is kind of, alligator, you got the jaws, the teeth, the lips, and it's a moving average based indicator, right? Obviously we can see that here. And it's a smoothed, and these are the settings for the alligator. And if you go into the gator, it's going to be the same thing, right? So the oscillator is correlated with these moving averages. And what this does, the distance between the lines is basically saying, correlating with the distance between the moving averages, right? As it's basically no separation here, you can see that down here. And then, of course, as they starts to trend upward, the moving averages show some separation, and we see that here as well. Now, it's to be used in a sense of phases, and it's just like a lot of moving averages are helping to gauge the trend. It's the same thing with this. It's a trend or momentum indicator, and the four phases are sleeping, awakening, eating, and sated. And so for sleeping, it's and you tell these phases by the oscillator down here, right? So let's zoom in some so we can get a better look. Sleeping phase is when you see red on both sides of the zero line for the oscillator. You see the zero line here. You can also, if you want to actually have the line on, you can put that on as well. But when it's red on both sides, that's the sleeping phase. The next phase is the awakening phase, and that happens when, after the sleeping phase, when we see red on both sides, we then see one of the bars turn green. And it doesn't matter which one, whether it's above or below the zero line, but when we see green start to show up, what that's going to be telling us is a trend should start forming soon. And then the eating phase is when both turn green, right? So we've gone from sleeping, where both are red, and then where one is green, one is red, and then into both being green. And then after that, we have basically it slowing down, where we now have one red and one green again for the last phase, which is the sated phase. And again, this is the same as the sleeping. It does not matter which one turns red or green of above or below the zero line. So let's go over potential examples in this Euro hourly chart. Again, keeping in mind this is a trend-based indicator. one thing, even without the oscillator, with moving averages like this, as you can see, not just separation between the MAs, but where price is respecting bounces from it. We can see the middle one, then the top one comes down to the bottom one and respects that as it continues up. But there are some other kind of tips and tricks you can use, to even confirm, in my view, in my opinion, confirm, some supply and demand, ranges and zones to draw from. So typically, if you're trading just off of the indicator, you would want to enter trades in the awakening phase when both bars are green. Again, after you come from the previous two phases. So for instance, here, sleeping phase, both are red. Then you got these two, even though they're extremely tiny, you got red and green. And then you've got here these two green. So now from here, there's not much necessarily going on as far as this big trend, but one thing you could use this for is if you take these two candles that are both green and find some supply and demand zones inside of those areas, those zones, right? So if you use this, there's not much confirmation, but then it continues on. And now we're starting to see some separation with the MAs. And then this line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fully green bars, right? So let's take this section and find some zones that we could. So from these 5 bars, we're looking for down candles if our bias is bullish. And so of these 5, we just have these 2. So we could group those together. So this is validating these 2 as demand. We wait for a break of structure, which we get it here. Retraces back into the zone and continues up strongly. So that's one way you could use this, where you want other confirmations, not just, okay, we have a green bar here, just enter a trade. Sure, this would have worked out, but there's other ones here where it's just not sure. The 2 greens just don't last very long before there's retracements or even a change of trend. And so using this as extra confluence, extra confirmation to find valid zones that price is going to bounce off of. So again, we have this range where the MAs are starting to expand, showing that, okay, this is the beginning of a trend. We have the phases, sleeping phase with 2 reds, changes, awakening, red and green, eating. Yeah, we do have these 2 here, but if you now view these 5 consecutive bars, again, with the MAs separating as part of the eating phase, of those 5 bars, look for the demand zone. We got it here. We wait for it to confirm that it's a zone with this break of structure. You see that this most recent high is broken here. Comes back into our zone. You could even, if you wanted an entry at the top of the zone where the MA is, if I zoom in, you can see that moving average is resting right at the top of the demand zone. could put your stop below here, and of course we see it continue up. Now you could, if you want to use the indicator for even exit strategies, that could happen as well. You can wait for the next phase of basically sleeping, right, where you see fully red bars on both sides of the zero line. So you could hold until you see fully red, for that. About 50 pips on an hourly chart. About a 25 pip stop. That's a 2-to-1. For me personally, I would not totally take into account just that. That would just be confirmation for me. As I see the fully red, it could be telling me there's a trend change. If it broke through this bottom MA, I would start now looking for a different trend to form downwards. And so again, it's a moving average based indicator, so some of it can be lagging, but as we can see, some touches and some validating zones, it can definitely be used to interpret price action that way and find specific POIs and specific price points with the MAs to trade from. And so that's the Gator and the Alligator indicators on MT4. And I hope this helped. And until next time, best of luck trading.